Hello, I'm Rajib Smara, student in Medical Physiology Lab, and I will be presenting on the effect of energy drink consumption on heart rate and productivity levels in college students. I chose to do this topic because I myself consume many energy drinks, and upon further research, I found that it leads to an increase in heart rate and other underlying diseases, as well as I wanted to evaluate if energy drinks increase productivity levels as well. My research question is, to what extent does energy drinks affect heart rate and productivity in female college students over a period of 5 days? I hypothesized that energy drink consumption will increase heart rate as well as it will increase productivity levels in college students. My independent variables are heart rate and productivity levels, and my dependent variable is energy drink. It is the Monster Energy drink, the pink can. The summary of the experiment is, prior to the experiment, a pulse will be taken from all 5 of the participants, and it will be a control factor as the normal heart rate. This will then be compared to the other heart rates that are calculated in the 5 days. Each day, a Monster Energy drink will be consumed, and within 1 hour, the heart rate will be detected via pulse, and a productivity survey will be taken each day, and later this data will be averaged and analyzed. In my abstract, I discussed using many studies that the consumption of energy drinks has been increasing in the youth, and how these toxic ingredients can be harmful to the youth, and how it increases heart rate, and there is no correlation between physical and cognitive performance. I further analyzed the purpose and the introduction I discussed in my abstract, and the purpose of the study was to examine the heart rates of college students within 5 days of energy drink consumption and examine if there is any productivity and performance rates through a productivity survey. In my abstract, I also indicated the participants who were participating in this. They were all female and in the age groups of 19 and 22, and permission was obtained from each student to conduct this study. The methods used were a 5-question survey, and this assessed productivity and performance, mainly cognitive performance, and this data was collected upon 5 days, which the heart rate was calculated over 5 days, and mean and standard deviation was calculated as well. Comparison of each data was done as well, and many control factors were maintained in this experiment. The results of this experiment were displayed in tables and graphs for comparison and data analysis. There were different tables and different graphs for each component. Normal heart rates and heart rates after consumption of Monster Energy drinks were compared. Column and bar graphs were used to show any comparisons to be made, and percentages from productivity surveys were analyzed in both a table and bar chart in order to evaluate how valuable the energy drinks were in terms of productivity, as well as a t-test was conducted to compare the 2 independent variables and see if there was any statistical significant evidence that energy drink consumption did have effects on heart rate and productivity levels. In this first chart, it can be seen that this is just normal heart rate, and these calculations of normal heart rate were measured in beats per minute, and it could act as a comparison for the average mean rates of consumption of energy drinks. This is what it compared to, and this was the mean heart rate that was taken for 5 days, and this was the standard deviation that was conducted in order to see how far apart this was from the mean, and these are the 5 participants. This was the average answers and percentages that were obtained from the productivity survey. Each of these 5 questions and the answers were for 5 days were evaluated and then calculated into percentages. This is the average percentages of the productivity survey, and it was analyzed by yes and no, and the percentages here, and among the questions to see the productivity levels. Of course, this is a opinionated and biased response. This is more numerical. This is the heart rate versus heart rate after energy drink consumption. It's seen that the average heart rate after energy drink consumption is much higher than the normal heart rate, but there's not a big difference. And then there is a 2-sample t-test that was done to determine statistical significance of heart rates. There's the normal heart rate and the heart rate consumption of after energy drink consumption. There's a null hypothesis written and an alternative hypothesis. The t-value that was conducted, which turned out to be negative, and the p-value, which caused rejection of both the null and alternative hypothesis. And the degrees of freedom, which is this means that the alternative hypothesis is rejected due to the p-value being greater than the alpha value, which is the 0.05, and there was error, and it was not statistically significant. The conclusion that can be drawn is that there is no evidence that the heart rate after energy drink consumption is statistically significant higher than normal heart rate. The other discussion and conclusion that can be drawn was that hypothesis was rejected due to no correlation being found among the independent and dependent variables, and no statistical evidence suggested that there is a correlation between heart rate and productivity with the consumption of energy drinks. The graphs both visually showed that even though it visually showed a slight difference between numbers, it was not altering enough to prove the hypothesis correct, and the t-test rejected both of the hypotheses, which showed that there was no statistical difference, and as well as the survey that was taken by the college students, which was for productivity. Even though it was biased and it was a small sample, it depicted how each student felt about the productivity levels, and these are the references that are cited upon this experiment.